If somebody were to ask you who the richest criminal of all time was, you would probably say that it was Pablo Escobar, and you would definitely be right in saying that. But you may not know exactly just how absurdly rich the man actually was. At the height of Escobar's power and adjusted for inflation in 2022 dollars, he had an estimated net worth of 70 billion US dollars. Now, 70 billion is a very difficult number to get one's head around, so let's look at this from a different angle. To understand how powerful the king of cocaine was, one should know that in the 1980s and early 1990s, his drug cartel monopolized the cocaine trade in the USA. His cartel was responsible for 80% of the cocaine market worldwide. In 1989, Pablo Escobar was estimated by Forbes to be the 7th richest person in the world. If he were alive today and making the same amount of money, he would be placed 14th on that list. So how did it all begin? Escobar started his criminal activity in his teenage years. He was selling fake diplomas, falsifying report cards before selling stereo equipment, stealing tombstones to resell them. Later, he was stealing cars, which led to his first arrest in 1974. Nevertheless, it didn't stop him. He was engaged in the Marlboro Wars, where he made his name in Colombia's smuggled cigarette market. This experience helped him to become an established drug smuggler. In the mid-1970s, he found a crime organization that eventually became the Medellin Cartel, the engine that provided him with his immense wealth. Medellin Cartel, a ruthless drug organization so large that it could be placed on the Fortune 500. Operated from 1972 to 1993, the cartel was an immensely powerful terrorist-type criminal organization in Medellin, Colombia. They started as a smuggling network, which eventually turned to trafficking cocaine in Bolivia, Colombia, Peru, Central America, the Bahamas, the USA, and Canada. The Medellin cartel smuggled tons of cocaine, which brought $420 a week. It is said that the cartel smuggled over 15 tons of cocaine each day. Cocaine surpassed coffee, which was deemed to be the #1 in Colombian export. For a time, the cartel basically owned an entire island in the Bahamas that they used as a refueling point for their planes smuggling cocaine from Colombia. The island had a 1-kilometer-long airstrip where they would land their large planes, transfer the cocaine onto smaller planes, and from there land on remote dirt roads in the south of Florida, where the cocaine would then hit the streets of the U.S. The cartel was making 5 to 7 of these flights every day in their heyday, and even had a fleet of 2 submarines. Altogether, about 15 tons of cocaine was being smuggled by the cartel into the United States per day. This amounted to them controlling 84 to 90% of the cocaine supply in the U.S. and about 80% of the total global cocaine supply. 1 single kilo of cocaine cost the cartel an average of $1,000 to refine and another $4,000 to smuggle into the U.S. Pilots who were employed by the cartel can make up to $500,000 per flight into the U.S. Once on the streets of the U.S., that kilo that cost $5,000 to arrive there could sell for anywhere between $50,000 to $70,000. What this meant was that Escobar's cartel was making $60 million in revenue per day. That equals $420 million every week, and that meant an operating yearly income of $22 billion. They were making so much money that they had to spend around $1,000 each week just on rubber bands to keep their mountains of cash all neat and organized. Yet the cartel wasn't engaged solely in narco traffic. They've been known for using violence for political aims and conducting an asymmetric war against the Colombian government. They were bombing, killing, and kidnapping. There's no clear information on how many people were killed, but some sources write that up to 4,000. As the Medellin cartel made colossal money, its leader became extraordinarily rich. Eventually, Forbes included Escobar in the list of its wealthiest people in the world for 7 years. He owned private planes, luxurious houses, and even a prison. He had so much money, so he had to keep it in warehouses and fields. It was simply impossible to spend it. With a reported worth of $25 billion, Escobar had ample money to spend, and he did. His lavish lifestyle included private planes, luxurious homes, and over-the-top parties. In the late 1980s, he reportedly offered to pay off his country's debt of $10 billion if he would be exempt from any extradition treaty. In addition, while his family was on the run in 92-93, Escobar reportedly burned $2 million in order to keep his daughter warm. Despite his best efforts, however, even Escobar couldn't spend all of that money, and much of it was stored in warehouses and fields. According to his brother, about 10%, or $2.1 billion, was written off annually, eaten by rats or destroyed by the elements. In some cases, it was simply lost. Escobar owned a number of palatial homes, but his most notable property was the 7,000-acre estate known as Hacienda Nápoles, named after Naples, Italy, located between Bogotá and Medellin. Reportedly costing $63 million, it included a soccer field, dinosaur statues, artificial lakes, a bullfighting arena, the charred remains of a classic car collection destroyed by a rival cartel, an airstrip, a tennis court, and a zoo. The estate, the front gate of which is topped by the plane he used on his first drug run to the U.S., was later looted by locals, and it is now a popular tourist attraction. Escobar's way of handling problems was plata o plomo, meaning silver, bribes, or lead, bullets. While he preferred the former, he had no qualms about the later option, earning a reputation for ruthlessness. He reportedly killed some 4,000 people, including numerous police officers and government officials. In 1989, the cartel was blamed for detonating a bomb on a plane that was carrying an alleged informant. Some 100 people died. In 1991, Escobar offered to turn himself into the authorities if he was allowed to build his own prison. Surprisingly, or perhaps not, Colombian officials agreed. The result was the luxurious La Catedral. Not only did the facility include a nightclub, a sauna, a waterfall, and a soccer field, it also had telephones, computers, and fax machines. However, after Escobar tortured and killed 2 cartel members at La Catedral, officials decided to move him to a less accommodating prison. Before he could be transferred, however, Escobar escaped. The Medellin cartel had got so rich at this point that they ran out of places to store their money and had to resort to stashing it in old, worn-down warehouses and even burying it in remote fields. Escobar decided to write off 10% of their monthly revenues simply because that's about how much was being eaten by rats or damaged by water. That's about $2.2 billion every year that was simply being destroyed, and it didn't affect Escobar much at all. This is a man who once burned $2 million in cold cash just to keep his daughter warm one time when she was cold. Now let's get some perspective on these numbers. As stated earlier, these numbers are so astronomically high that they're very difficult to visualize. Let's think about how the average yearly income for somebody in Colombia today is $5,194. That means that today it would take 4,235,657 average Colombians to combine their yearly incomes just to match Pablo Escobar's. Moving over to the U.S. for a comparison, the average yearly household income here is $51,939. That means that the average household in the U.S. would have to work for 1,155 years, saving all of the money that they made in the process just to equal the same amount of money that Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel was making in just one single day. Staggeringly, to match the amount of money the cartel was making in 1 year, it would take 423,574 average U.S. households to pool all of their yearly earnings together. That's roughly the same population as the city of Miami. And what about Escobar's reported net worth of $70 billion? That value is so high, it's roughly equivalent to the entire 2022 GDP of Paraguay, a country with a population of 6,783,000 people. If the Medellin cartel at its peak was actually listed as an American company on the Fortune 500 today, it would be placed at the 129th largest company by yearly revenue, just making more money than the Union Pacific Railroad Company, while also making more money than Starbucks, Staples, Kohl's, Southwest Airlines, and even Facebook. But all of this wealth couldn't possibly last forever. Escobar's cartel was responsible for an estimated 3,500 murders, 500 of whom were police officers in the city of Medellin. Escobar himself was gunned down in a hail of bullets on the 2nd of December 1993, and his cartel and wealth largely died with him. While Pablo Escobar's fortune made him an influential man in life, his legacy has left a lasting influence on our pop culture and TV shows. That's all in today's video. What are your thoughts on the incredible journey of the biggest drug kingpin in the world has ever seen? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to get all the interesting updates.